Okay, so our first video, our first lecture of the summer term is on word classes. And today we're going to be talking about nouns and adjectives from chapter 1. So if you are watching this video, that means you finished the overview video and that you've also posted to the grammar forum. If you haven't done those things, I hope you will do them soon. So before we get started with nouns, we need to understand this distinction between form versus function. So the function of a word is what it's doing within the sentence. And that's essentially what we're focusing on in this unit and in much of the book. We're interested in what that word is doing within the sentence structure. So if we look at these examples with James is walking, so James is walking to Island Hall for class. So walking here is a verb. This is an action. So the function of walking here is a verb. However, in the second example, walking is Steve's main form of exercise. Here, walking is a noun. Walking is a thing that Steve enjoys. So this is an important distinction because it would be incorrect to say that these two forms of walking are the same. Sure, they are spelled the same, but they have very different functions. The same is true with the example of chocolates below. So a box of chocolates. Here, chocolates is a noun. You can have one chocolate, two chocolates, three chocolates. However, in the second example, chocolate is describing cheesecake. What type of cheesecake? What kind of cheesecake? So in the second, chocolate is an adjective. So keep this in mind as you work through chapter 1, through the exercises, that we're focusing on the function of these words within a sentence. So every sentence must have two parts. It must have a subject and it must have a verb. The subject is the noun the noun phrase that begins the sentence. So in these we have John. John runs, John ran, John ate. John is the subject noun of these. John's the doer of these actions. So we would divide the subject and the predicate at that point. So subjects are nouns or noun phrases, and we generally think of nouns as being persons, places, or things, but that's not always true. We can think of happiness or love. Those are certainly nouns, but they don't necessarily fit that description of a person, place, or thing. Subjects can be a pronoun, right? From the previous example, we have John runs, where John is the subject, but we could have he runs, where he is a pronoun, but it is the subject of the sentence. So the subject is often the doer, right? The actor. The subject is the person that's doing something, that's causing something to happen. We do have imperative structures like go away, turn off the light, close the door, sit down, stand up. Those command structures are called imperatives, and they don't have a subject, but we have an understood subject, you. So a first step when doing grammatical analysis, and really something that you should be doing throughout this course, is finding the verb. Start with that. So in these examples in the chart, we have the man works at the post office. Works is the main verb. So that means the subject is to the left with the man. Running is, the elderly woman lives. So again, find the main verb and mark this line between the subject and the predicate. So in this example, we're looking for, again, we're starting with find the main verb. That verb is decided. So everything to the left of decided, everything in red, is the subject noun phrase, right? That's the subject of the sentence. Notice that the disgruntled workers from the local factory, that full noun phrase can be replaced by a pronoun. They decided to protest. So that's a great way to identify a subject of the sentence. everything that you can replace with a pronoun, that is the subject, right? So again, they decided to protest. So they replaces the disgruntled workers from the local factory, and therefore that full phrase is the subject of the sentence. So look at these examples and try to quickly divide the subject and the predicate. So in A, this one is a little trickier, right? I think it is a disgrace. So we have two verbs, think and is, but think is the main verb. So I is the subject, think it is a disgrace, that's all the predicate. Okay. In B, the guy in the house over there works for the city. So remember what I said about pronouns and subjects. So all of that in the sentence that can be replaced by a pronoun is the subject of the sentence. So he works for the city. So he is the subject, works for the city is the predicate. Most of the mistakes he made were very minor. Again, replaced with a pronoun, they were minor. So the main verb is were. They were very minor. So we divide the subject and predicate between made and were. The thing that puzzles me is why no one called the police. So here, the thing that puzzles me, this is the subject. This is why no one called the police. One of her daughters is training to be a pilot. She is training to be a pilot, so divide between daughters and is. So continuing with nouns, we have several different types of nouns. We have count and non-count. So count are simply those nouns that we can count. Books, desks, students, cars, all of these are count nouns. Non-count nouns, as you may expect though, are nouns that we don't generally count. We don't say 100 airs. We don't say 10 oils, right? So we think of sugar, salt, milk, these items as non-count nouns. And then we have common and proper. Common are simply those nouns that are not capitalized, desk, chair, pencil, whereas proper nouns, Texas A&M University Corpus Christi, are capitalized and are proper nouns. So this question in red, do you think nouns would be considered an open or closed word class? I'm going to put that question over on the grammar forum, and I'd like you to think about it and give a response. So when working with grammar, we want to balance the knowledge that we have and our intuition, but we also need to perform some grammatical tests. Now, certainly we all have grammar knowledge. We are speakers of English. We may not have the technical words to describe what we're doing, but we can certainly do so. We certainly use grammar and we communicate clearly all of the time. So look at this example. The Frabbis Gricks were brocking by Parmy Dorfer very botly. So we could guess that Gricks is probably a noun here. It has a plural S, one Grick, two Gricks. It seems that Frabbis is an adjective. What kind of Gricks? Frabbis Gricks were brocking. So we know that verbs generally have that ing, so were brocking is an action, so brocking is a verb. My Parmy Dorfer, so my Dorfer, it must be a thing, so Dorfer is a noun. What kind of Dorfer? Parmy, so Parmy is an adjective. Very botly, how we do something, how something is done, finishing in ly, those are adverbs. So some important tests for nouns. So first we have the test. If you can put a the in front of the word, then it's got to be a noun, right? So the banana, the phone, the window. So there's the test. You can put it in front of put the in front of the word. We have the plural test. Again, books, computers, cars, trucks, pizzas, all of those we can make plural. We don't make other words plural. We don't make adjectives plural, right? The fast car, we don't say fasts to show plurality. The pronoun replacement test, if you can replace a word with a pronoun, then it's got to be a noun. So pronouns are words like he, she, you, I, we, us, them, they. All of those are pronouns. So look at these examples. So which of these words are nouns? So if you apply a test, so first we can see that cow and chocolates in number 1 are nouns. So we have the cow, so it passes the test. We could say the cows, it passes the plural test. We could say they ate chocolates. So it passes all 3 tests. Same with chocolates, it's plural, 1 chocolate, 2 chocolates. We could replace it with a pronoun, ate them. Okay, so you can see then that these nouns pass these tests. Okay, if we go through all of these, we can see the same. So for example, number 3, posters with push pins. So posters, it's plural with an S. We can say the posters. Same with push pins, the push pins. We have 2 push pins. So all of these nouns pass these tests. So if you notice in your textbook, you have the answers to the questions from 1 through 5 in the back of your book. Right? So as you're working through the text, do the first 5, check your answers, make sure you're doing well, and then continue on with your homework. This is an effective way for you to self-assess and to see how you're moving through the content. So if we look at section 1.1 from the text, it has these questions for you to answer. I've put the answers here for us today for this discussion. So which of these words are nouns? Let's talk about 2 of these. So in number 1, we have brain, hemisphere, and hemisphere. Again, these 3 words pass the noun test. We can put the in front of these. The brain has the hemisphere and the hemisphere. Sure, it sounds awkward, but it works. We can have brains, 1 brain, 2 brains. We can have hemisphere and 2 hemispheres. So it passes the test. How about number 4? Brain scanners. So here, brain is not a noun. Here, brain is an adjective because it's telling us what kind of scanners. And then we have studies. Studies is a noun here. It is not a verb. We're talking about 1 study, 2 studies, 3 studies. So again, here we see the importance of these tests. We see that words have different functions. Certainly we know that brain is sometimes a noun, but in number 4 it's not. It's an adjective. Also with studies, we know that studies is sometimes a verb. She studies in the library. However, in this example, studies is a noun. So adjectives, our second word class for discussion. So adjectives modify nouns. So that means they generally come before the noun that they are modifying. They're giving us extra information about the noun. So for example, we have the tall boy. So often a, and, the are referred to as articles, and that's fine. Some grammar books do talk about them as articles. We're going to say that those articles are actually adjectives. So whenever you see a, an, and the, you can always mark those as adjectives. Tall, again, tall is telling us what kind of boy. Tall, short, happy, all of those are adjectives. The steep staircase, again, a, an, and the, always adjectives. Steep, telling us what kind of staircase. So again, it's modifying, it's explaining, it's giving us information about the name staircase. So types of adjectives, as I said, we have the articles, a, an, and the. We have demonstratives, like this, that, these, and those. For example, this bag, this book, that class. All of those are giving us information to help us know which noun we're discussing. We have quantifiers, such as all. We have possessives, such as my, so my bag, my class, my car. And numbers, 2 students. So in that example, 2 is an adjective. So most commonly we have descriptive adjectives, a beautiful day, attractive investment. So as I said, these descriptive adjectives generally come before the noun that they modify. So adjectives have what's called a comparative and a superlative form, which means they have this the ER and the EST, right? So when we say tall, taller, tallest. So other word classes don't have that. That is unique to adjectives. Only adjectives have that comparative and superlative. But some adjectives don't always have that, but most do. How to find a descriptive adjective? If you can put very in front of the word, very beautiful, very attractive, very hot, very difficult, all of those then are descriptive adjectives. So are these words adjectives? Beautiful, stinky, criminal, quickly, lively, business, isolated? So yes, very beautiful, very stinky. Those are both adjectives. Criminal can sometimes be an adjective, a criminal activity. Quickly, however, is never an adjective. Quickly is an adverb. He runs quickly. How does he run? Quickly. Lively, the lively party, describing what kind of party. Business, again, business, normally a noun, but we can have a business meeting, a business person. So in those examples, business is an adjective. We have isolated, the isolated island, that works as an adjective. So in the book, that next activity on adjectives, again, I've given you some of the answers here, but you can also check in the back of your book. Let's just discuss one of these. So if we look at number 1, artificial intelligence copies human behavior. An essential job of adjectives is to answer what kind. Right? So what kind of intelligence? Artificial intelligence. What kind of behavior? Human behavior. Therefore, both of those are adjectives. Both of those are describing nouns. So briefly on pronouns also for today. So pronouns replace noun phrases. So pronouns, so words like I, you, he, she, it, we, they, those are all subject pronouns. So those come in the subject positions, whereas we have object pronouns that come in the object position. So she talks to him, so those are in an object position. So in 1.3 are these pronouns or adjectives. So these can be a little tricky. So let's talk about these together. So your brain, which brain, your brain. So your is actually telling us, is helping us know which brain. So in number 1, that is an adjective. In number 2, our processing, right? Sentence context affects processing. So the adjective our is telling us who's processing. It's helping us know about this noun processing. So the only sentence where we actually have a pronoun is number 4. Research on aging may help us. Us is not telling us about a noun. Us is not modifying a noun. A few more pronouns or adjectives to help you see this distinction. So that is your bag. Here, that is a pronoun. It's the subject of the sentence. In 2, I like those. Here, this is a pronoun, right? What are those? remember that pronouns replace nouns or noun phrases. So I like the movie, I like those shoes. So here in number 2, those is replacing a noun. So those is a pronoun. 3 and 4, this class, this bag, those are adjectives because they're telling us which class, which bag. So that's all the slides for this lecture. So we just covered the word classes of nouns, adjectives, and pronouns. So your next step is to go to the book, finish those homework activities, and then come back and continue on with the next word classes lecture.